Hello and welcome to the channel and welcome to a classical music ramble where I'm going to discuss my 15 favourite classical music pieces within a certain framework. The framework being only one entry per composer, and with only 15 entries, a lot of composers are going to get missed, so there's no point in doubling up. Also, no film scores or music written specifically for film, no matter how much they are in the classical tradition, mainly because I can deal with that in a completely separate list. The third rule is only entire pieces are being considered, no fragments, no second movement of symphony number such and such. There'll be none of that. These recommendations, and they are recommendations, are for the entire piece. I should point out this is going out for patrons only at the moment, but I want to make this video in such a way that if I should choose to, I can put it up onto YouTube as well. Completely different style of videos for each platform. Okay, number 15. We have a piece written in 1727, and it is, I suppose, rather ingrained into me as an English person. I'm not entirely sure about Scotland, Wales or Northern Ireland, but this is very, very ingrained into the English subconscious. As I said, it was written in 1727 and has been played at every English coronation since then, and quite a lot of other royal functions as well. Weird, because it was written by a German, George Frederick Handel, and written for the coronation of George II, who was himself a Hanoverian. Zadok the Priest, it nearly didn't get put on this list because I thought it was part of the Messiah, but I was wrong. It is a piece separate, entirely on its own. At number 14 is a piece by the granddaddy of them all, J.S. Bach, Johann Sebastian. I kind of wanted to put Toccata and Fugue in D minor into this list, but when looking up on Wikipedia, I discovered that there is some debate as to whether Bach actually wrote it, and there's not a lot of information on when. So I decided to exclude it from the list, and instead I've put The Well-Tempered Clavier, Book 1. Specifically Book 1, because I do know Book 2, but Book 1 is way more famous. It was written in 1722, and it's generally meant as a practice piece, as that was part of J.S. Bach's duties, was to teach music. So I don't know if it was ever really meant to survive this long, but it has, and I'm so glad it has. I really prefer it being played on a harpsichord rather than the piano, but it sounds beautiful on both. It was also written before the 12-tet system that we use today was formalised. So while it's always played in 12-tet now, there is actually no clear indication of exactly what temperament Bach had in mind for these pieces. At number 13, we're going to 1924 for a piece by George Gershwin, scored originally for piano and jazz orchestra and premiering in a concert entitled An Experiment in Modern Music. Rhapsody in Blue has since been re-scored for pit orchestra and then for full orchestra, which is generally the version most heard today. Technically, it's a piano concerto. I mean, I consider it a piano concerto, albeit in a jazz blues style. Number 12, go to 1886 for this one, when it was written, and it premiered in the same year in London and in Paris the following year, by Frenchman Camille Saint-Saëns. This piece is huge. This piece is a gigantic piece. It's got vocal, choral parts, it's got full orchestra, there's a piano, a couple of harps, and an organ, which is why it is called the Organ Symphony. Symphony No3, and was dedicated to Franz Liszt. A lot of pieces over the years by different composers have been dedicated to Franz Liszt. He was very influential, and he does not appear in this list, I'm afraid, in anything other than dedications. At number 11, we have a symphony written in 1893 by Antonin Dvorak. I'm pretty sure I butchered that name. Dvorak's a pretty big name in the composing world. And his Symphony number 9 from the New World is probably his most well known. And there's a reason for that. It is fantastic. The slow movement is extremely well known. The finale is just fire, just fantastic. And it's just such a mix. In some places you can really hear the American plains and the vastness of the American landscape. In others you can hear his Slavonic, Czech sort of background and the melodies of his native country coming in. So it's a real eclectic mix of themes, but just so good. It should also be pointed out for older viewers older than me that is, that this symphony was once called number 5. And for some reason, at some point, somewhere between the 50s and the 70s, I think, there's no real clear date on when this happened, but it was changed to the Symphony number 9. So obviously another 3 symphonies were found and were proven to be written earlier than the 9th, what is now known as the 9th from the New World. This is going to get confusing. I think I better move on. At number 10, we have a piano concerto. I love me a piano concerto. This one was written in 1875 and revised in 1879 and again in 1888. A lot of composers are not happy with their work and keep revising them. The 1888 version is probably the version that we're most familiar with now, and it's Peter Ilyich Tchaikovsky's Piano Concerto number 1 in B minor, I think. I didn't write that bit down. This was written for the pianist Rubinstein, but unfortunately Rubinstein really didn't like it. So Hans von Bülow played the premiere of this piano concerto. And it should be noted that Rubinstein later retracted his words and became a big champion of this work. At number 9, we have a solo piano work by Frédéric Chopin. This is, it's probably not his most well known, but it's among his most well known works. Prelude in E minor, opus 28, number 4. And I have absolutely no idea when it was written because I couldn't find that information. But it was featured on the West Wing episode Han and was used to describe the Korean word Han as an immeasurable sorrow that is beyond words. I think this piece really reflects that. It's the piece that Chopin requested to be played at his funeral. And given in mind that he wrote the very famous funeral march, that's saying something. I'm also treating it as a single piece, even though it is from a collection of 24 preludes. all of which had names at some point. George Sand's daughter apparently had an autographed copy of the original score for these 24 preludes, all with titles, but unfortunately, although the titles remain, to which preludes each title actually refers to is now lost to history. At number 8, a piece written in 1888 from Russia during a period when Russia was very, very obsessed with tales and folk stories from the Middle East and Far East and the Orient. And this piece was inspired by pictures from the 1001 Nights, or the Arabian Nights as it's more commonly known as, and it is Scheherazade. It's a tone poem. I think there's four sections to it. There's some brilliant themes, especially the theme of the Sultan and Scheherazade herself. The Sultan is big and brassy and deep and dramatic, whereas Scheherazade's theme is played on a solo violin, and it is just beautiful. It's just beautiful theme, and it's been used. That theme's been used in quite a lot of things, including The Damned's massive track Curtain Call, which was on the B-side of the 12-inch version of White Rabbit. Just thought I'd throw that in there because that's where I first heard the theme. I didn't know it was from a classical piece at the time, and it's only later that I listened to Scheherazade and found out that theme was sampled from this piece. At number 7 is a symphony that literally broke music as far as I'm concerned. It's the gateway between the classical period and the romantic period. I'm pretty sure this is not the first romantic symphony that was written, but it is recognised as being the transitional piece. It is Beethoven, and it is Symphony No3 Eroica. And admittedly, for Beethoven, I could have picked so many pieces. At least 7 of his piano sonatas, 4 or 5 of his symphonies, his violin concerto, a couple of his piano concertos. They all deserve to be on this list. But it's Symphony No3 that really does it for me. It's so dramatic at the beginning. It's just so sweet. It's just so sweet. It should be noted that the title of this symphony was Bonaparte and was dedicated to Napoleon. When Napoleon declared himself emperor in 1804, Beethoven rededicated it and called it the Eroica Symphony, which means heroic. Beethoven had no time for the aristocracy. He was very much the rebel of his time, a punk, if you like. At number 6, we have a piece written in 1735, and it is by Antonio Vivaldi. And I know what you're thinking, Four Seasons. No, not the Four Seasons. Could have been the Four Seasons. That was for a very long time my favourite Vivaldi piece. For a very long time, it was the only Vivaldi I knew. But its overuse in phone hold call centres and supermarket tannoy systems, etc., over bad recordings, over tinny speakers, it's lost its appeal. It's become cliched. And it's become associated with disappointment and frustration because of the call centres that use Vivaldi's, especially Vivaldi's Winter, as a holding Muzak pattern. Yes, it's no longer my favourite Vivaldi piece. That honour belongs to Nulla in Mundi Pax Sincera. It's a motet that reflects upon the imperfections of the world and humanity as a whole. It's not very long, it's about 9 minutes, I think, and it's just wonderful, just a wonderful piece. At number 5, we have a piece written for a play. I've got to confess, I've never heard the entire music that was originally written for the play, as I've never seen the play, and Edvard Grieg, who wrote the Peer Gynt Suites 1 and 2, he revised the original play music into 2 suites of 4 pieces each. And it's those suites that are most played today, and it's the one that I know. Yeah, I think they were revised in 1893, and that's all the information I've got for Peer Gynt. But the very, very famous Morning Suite is the first track on Suite 1, and the 4th part of Suite 1 is the very, very famous Hall of the Mountain King. So it's pretty, there's at least two of the 8 pieces that are really, really ingrained in the consciousness. At number 4, we have another suite, this time in 7 movements, but a lot bigger. This is full orchestra with added other instruments. It was written at the beginning of the First World War, between 1914 and 1916, by Gustav Holst, and it is the Planet Suite. And everyone knows Mars. Mars is, again, almost cliched now, especially since it got copied by John Williams for Star Wars, but not really. But it's Jupiter that is my favourite, especially the very, very English theme that runs through the middle of it. In fact, I think his daughter Imogen always said that Jupiter was his most English piece. And now we're into the top 3, my 3 absolute favourite pieces of all time. And no lie, if there was no restrictions on this video and I could choose multiple pieces from the same composer, these 3 pieces would still be my top 3. The first one was written in 1935, and it's a series of songs from a medieval collection that were gathered together by Carl Orff and an assistant, and music written for them, because the words existed, but the music, being medieval, was never written down. So Carl Orff wrote music for them, and it is massive. It is scored for full orchestra, piano. I think there might be 2 pianos in the scoring. There's also male, female, and children's chorus, and it's full chorus as well, along with solo male and solo female parts. It is extremely postmodern, with some very unusual rhythms going on, but it is just amazing from start to finish. And it goes on for about an hour and 10 minutes, so it's quite substantial. But each of the songs is fairly short, and it is sung in secular Latin, Middle High German, and Old French. The songs draw inspiration from a variety of different sources, from the fickleness of fate to the perils and delights of gambling, lust, and alcohol. It's a very, very mixed bag. That is Carmina Burana by Carl Orff. At number 2, we have a piece again written in 1935. This time in Russia is Sergei Prokofiev's Romeo and Juliet Orchestral Suites. Originally written for a ballet, much longer, it was reduced to an orchestral suite later on. and it's that I'm recommending. The orchestral suite itself is still quite substantial and in 3 parts, and it features the very, very famous Dance of the Knights, also known as the Montagues and the Capulets. At number 1, here we go. Can you guess what it is yet? Well, it's a piano concerto, I can tell you that, and it's a fairly modern one. It was written in 1909. It's Russian. I'll tell you that, it's definitely Russian. And it is gigantic. It is, well, I've seen videos from actual concert pianists, and this one doesn't actually feature in the hardest pieces ever. And I can't imagine why not, because to me, it sounds like it's almost impossible. It really does. It is chords that are gigantic and well over an octave. It's relentless. It's 48 minutes long, and the piano part does not stop, not for an instant. It is absolutely mind-bogglingly mind-boggling, if such a thing exists. It is Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto number 3. Number 2 is always quoted as being one of his greatest pieces, and I'll agree that Piano Concerto number 2 is indeed fantastic. But number 3 just has fire, it has insanity in it. The final movement, with big block chords jittering and staccatoing, and it's unhinged in places. It is so romantically beautiful in places, especially during the second movement and the transition from the second movement to the third movement, of which I believe there is no real stop between the second and third movement. I think it just flows straight through from the second to the third. The orchestration, I can't gush on this piece enough. I listen to it all the time. I discovered it because of the film Shine, which is also where I discovered Nuala in Mundi Pax Sincera, which is also played during that film. Geoffrey Rush as Australian child prodigy pianist David Helfgott, who is still performing to this day, by the way. And the film really it explores Helfgott's mental health issues, as well as his striving for perfection in his piano playing, and it is an amazing film. But you get the feeling that the VAC 3, as it is commonly known, almost drove him insane. To me, that's what this piece always represents as insurmountable. The piece describes the striving, the pushing for a goal that is almost impossible to achieve, and the mental anguish that arises from that struggle. That's what the piece speaks to me about, and it's relatable to me in some ways. So I suppose that's why I love the piece. It just has elements of clarity and insanity, and it's very, very bipolar, if you like. So I suppose it was always going to appeal to me. But yeah, the VAC 3, by far the greatest piece, in my opinion, that has ever been. Thank you very much. And that will be all. But when Napoleon declared himself emperor in 1803, in 1804, it should be pointed out that the title of this no, it's not piano concerto, is it? The songs And it features the very, very famous Dance of the Knights, also known as the Romulans. Yeah, it's because it's about Star Trek, isn't it? As O Fortuna is. It starts pretty much the way it finishes. It finishes pretty much the way it starts, sharp. Middle High German and Old French. Yes, got it right. Should have checked that after. Written in 1875 and then revised in 1879 and again in 1888. I got that right, fuck. I better do that again. At number 11, we have a piece written in, oh, I should have, damn it. Okay, at number, ooh, bit of a wobble there. At number 13, we're zooming forward into the future for there. Okay, at number 11, we have a piece written in 1893 for an American tour. And I've got nothing else to say about it. And I don't know Vivaldi well enough. No, scrub that. On government hold, phone call hold, you know. I might actually film that again, right?